It's my personal and admittedly biased opinion that wormholes are some of the coolest content in EVE Online. There's just something about that inherent danger and mystery that makes them absolutely intoxicating for me. Although I am also aware that that inherent danger and mystery is also what makes them incredibly intimidating and daunting to newer players. So the aim of today's video then is going to be to teach new players how to find wormholes and how to safely navigate them. We're not going to go into the basics of probe scanning, we're not going to look at hacking or combat sites or anything like that you'd want to do in a wormhole. We are just teaching the absolute basics of wormhole survival. Ahoy there folks, I'm Captain Benzie, and hopefully by the end of this lesson, you'll be willing to undock and find a wormhole of your own. Now, first things first, before we can jump into a wormhole, we're first going to have to locate a wormhole. Now that means we're going to need to do some probe scanning, so you should have a ship set up for this. This could be one of the basic 4 Empires frigates, it could be something like one of the advanced frigates like I'm going to be using. I'm going to be using my cheater, the Lucid Echo, because I really enjoy this ship. If it is your first time in a wormhole though, I do strongly recommend using something cheap and disposable. These are dangerous places, and until you understand how they fully work, it's a good idea to have something that you can just lose and not feel bad about it. I know some people who do this literally in a Corvette just to experience it for the first time. It's also worth noting you should have a home station set up somewhere sensible. That way, in a worst case scenario, if everything goes completely Pete Tong, you can just self-destruct and find your own way home that way. But hey, that's a worst case scenario, right? Now, to actually find a wormhole, we're going to need some form of cosmic signature, and you can just fly aimlessly around multiple systems and look for these, or we can use the agency. So if we come to the Neocom on the left-hand side and open the agency, or use the default shortcut of Alt-M, this will open the agency. We can then go to the Exploration tab here along the top, and then we can go to Cosmic Signatures. This will open up every link nearby that has a cosmic signature in it. So we've got a full list of systems in here, and you can filter this by distance and security if you so wish. As it happens, I've got a couple within one jump, so we should be okay to just go straight to one of these. So I'm going to go for Derentel, I'm going to set destination, I'm going to undock, and see you there. Now, if you're going to be probe scanning at least semi-seriously, it does pay to set up a safe bookmark in the systems that you're going to be scanning in. Now, I will detail how to create one of those in a future video. The basic premise is to create a bookmark that is at least 14.3 astronomical units away from every other major location in your system. Now, if you are feeling a little bit risky or, like me, lazy and don't mind too much if you lose your ship, you can also just come to a gate. We're going to double tap into the distance here. We're going to activate the micro warp drive, I'm going to launch my probes, and then after a couple of cycles of the micro warp drive, I'm going to activate my covert ops cloak, just to sort of keep me a little bit hidden off the gate here. In high sec, this should be enough, but it is good practice to get into the habit of making yourself a couple of safe bookmarks in systems that you frequent regularly. Now, I'm going to open up the solar system map and the probe scanning interface. You can see I've got mine set up in this very specific way. It's up to you how you look at this. I can also see here that I have 4 cosmic signatures currently in this system. Now, I'm just going to move this around. I'm going to pick one of these, probably one that's fairly far away from everything, and start by scanning this down. So we center in on this, we move the probes into the center, twist this all around, shake it about, make it a little bit bigger, and we're going to start scanning down this signature, and hopefully, fingers crossed, this is a wormhole. If it's not, it could be something like a relic or data site that we could use as well. If you're into exploration, that can be an interesting little find for you. This one's going to be a little bit of a pig and whiz itself all over the map, isn't it? Just because I'm recording a video here, it's going to try and be as difficult as possible. So I've probably zoomed that one in a little bit too far, but we'll see. That really, yeah, that's miles off. That really should have been something like a 4AU probe scan, but we'll see. Oh no, and it is indeed a wormhole. Perfect. So we're going to center this up one last time, bring the probes down to 1AU to really zoom in on that, and we will check this one out, and I can show you how to identify different wormholes first of all, because wormholes are not the same. Now, with just this one done here, I'm going to warp within 0 meters. For me, this is doable because I can warp cloaked because I'm using one of the exploration frigates. You may have to turn your cloak off first if you're doing this. You should also never really warp to 0 because obviously I'm going to drop that cloak on the other side. You should warp in at, say, 20 to 40 kilometers minimum away from it in order to get a good look at the wormhole. But there we are. We now have a wormhole. Scary looking black dot here on the map, and actually I'm far enough away that I haven't lost my cloak, which is pretty sweet. Now, we can see this in the overview here. Do obviously make sure you have exploration details set up on your overview. We can now right-click this and show info. It's worth noting that the actual colours and the pulses around a wormhole can also be used for visual identification, but I'll cover that in a more advanced video. For now, get into the habit of checking a wormhole via the show info. Here we can see that this is an unstable wormhole deep in space. Wormholes of this kind usually collapse after a few days and can lead to anywhere. This wormhole seems to lead into unknown parts of space. This means that this wormhole goes into Anoikis, or wormhole space, W space. The area I'm currently in, all of the systems you're probably used to flying around in, are colloquially referred to as K space, or known space. Some wormhole gates do take you to other areas of K space. You might be going somewhere through, say, Heimatar, you scan a wormhole, and it will open up to, say, Essence, or you might find a wormhole that leads to Deepest Darkest Nullsec. These can be really useful for getting in and out of places quickly and provide excellent shortcuts for players who are that little bit further away from trade hubs, for example. This one, however, is exactly what I'm looking for. This is going to take us into W space. Below this, we can see that the wormhole is beginning to decay and probably won't last another day. Now, this bit of text is very important to us because wormholes do have a lifespan, and there are alternate bits of text that can go in there that will tell you all kinds of other stuff about how long that wormhole has got left. So in this case, if it says it's not yet begun to decay, that means there is more than 24 hours remaining on the wormhole. In this case, it says beginning to decay. That means we are somewhere between 24 and 4 hours. Ultimately, the fact that it is longer than 4 hours means I'm happy to jump into this one. It's not going to collapse behind me anytime soon. If it says reaching the end, then that means it has less than 4 hours left on it. And if it's got less than 4 hours, that could be 3 hours 59 minutes, that could be 4 minutes. It's impossible to tell beyond that. So I would recommend, if it says reaching the end, you leave that wormhole alone for now and find yourself another one. We can then have a look at the wormhole has not yet had its stability significantly disrupted by ships passing through it. Essentially, wormholes allow a certain amount of mass through them before they collapse. They will either collapse at the end of the timer or when so much mass has passed through. Now, this sentence means that, yeah, there's not much happening. It's over 50% available. So again, it's unlikely to close behind me. It could say that it hasn't collapsed to a critical degree, not to a critical degree. That means it's got between 10 and 50% of its mass allowance left. Again, that should be pretty safe if you're going in a frigate, as long as you don't suddenly get a fleet of people suddenly jump through it behind you. But if you're in a frigate, that means it's probably safe to jump in, have a little nose around, and it shouldn't close behind you. Finally, if it says stability critically disrupted, that means there is less than 10% of its mass allowance left, and that could collapse basically at any moment, because again, it's just less than 10%. It could be 9.9%, it could be 0.9%, it could be 0.1%. It might collapse if you jump through it when it says stability critically disrupted. So unless you've got a very good plan for getting out of there, or you just don't care, for example, again, I do tend to avoid holes that say stability critically disrupted. The final bit of text we get here is larger ships can pass through this wormhole. This means that exactly what it says, basically, that it can take anything from battleships, orcas, and smaller ships can pass through it. There are multiple different phrases used here. Very large ships means that anything except Titans and supercarriers can go through. Large ships means battleships, orcas, and anything smaller. Medium size means unplated nesters, battle cruisers, and smaller ships. And only the smallest ships means frigates, destroyers, and specially fit cruisers. Some of the smallest cruisers can just about fit through those. That's not hugely important if you're just dipping your toes into a wormhole, but it's useful to know what kind of traffic can pass through this. Now, I would recommend as well, before going any further, that we bookmark this wormhole. Now, you can do this on the overview, or you can do it directly on the wormhole, right-click it, save location, and then just add, say, wormhole. That'll do nicely. Now, I'm going to put this on to automatically expire in 2 days. Chances are I'm going to have deleted it by then anyway, because I'm pretty fastidious when it comes to managing my bookmarks, but by setting it to auto-expire in 2 days, no wormhole lasts that long, right? Therefore, it's going to be gone in 2 days anyway. So I've got a bookmark set, which means I can easily find this if I need to swap, and I do actually have a folder that I share between my alts that allows me to use that bookmark on each of my alts. But with that bookmark set, we can now enter the wormhole, and I can show you what this is all like on the inside. So we're going to slowly drift towards it. We're going to get the little animation of whoop, whoop, whoop through the wormhole, and we are now in J-Space. You can see it's called J-Space here because of this information up here at the top left. This is the current solar system, and there are identifiers you can use to figure out exactly what kind of wormhole this is before you jump through. You can even identify it based on this as well. There are maps of wormholes. Wormholes are basically systems that constantly have ever-shifting connections. Like if you're in a particular station, like say Jita, if you're in a system like Jita, you know exactly which systems are attached to it, and they are always going to be there. Whereas wormholes, you are only connected by other wormhole openings, and if those collapse, new ones will open. So you're constantly shifting, and there's a little bit of sort of fear involved in that. Now, the first thing you do when you get into a wormhole without failure is bookmark the exit. We are going to exit, put a bookmark there, and that is just going to be exit. Nice and straightforward. We're going to call that the exit so we know where we're going. You need to start leaving a breadcrumb trail. Before you do anything else, make sure that is done. Like when I was in Signal Cartel and Eve Scout, they rescue people from wormholes. So if in a worst case situation you do end up getting stuck in a wormhole, you can always contact them and they will come find you and lead you out back into K-Space. But at the same time, most of the time that people have done this, it's simply because they've forgotten to bookmark the exit. And honestly, it's such a simple thing to do. Get into that habit. Before you do anything else in a wormhole, bookmark the freaking exit. If I've not made that clear, I'm going to say it one more time. Bookmark the exit to your wormhole. Right, now with that done, we can cloak up and we can start scanning this thing and we can talk about what is actually inside a wormhole. So let's open the solar system map. Again, you really should create safe spaces if you want to be super safe. For me, though, I'm happy just to have gotten a decent bit of distance there with a micro warp drive, put a covert ops cloak on, and now I'm just going to drift under basic propulsion for however long this takes. Now, inside a wormhole is kind of similar to inside any other system. You will find that some of them you get a little notice down here saying there are different effects like wolf riots or black holes and things like this that may increase your velocity or improve your shields whilst, you know, reducing your armor and things like that. There are all kinds of different effects that just being in a wormhole can have on you. The second thing we should note is if we come down here to the left-hand side and look at local, local's empty, right? There's no one in here. No, there could be a dozen people in here. Local in wormholes does not react like local in other systems, and that is vitally important if you are exploring wormholes with friends. Do not type in local. The second you send a message in local, you are identifying yourself as a potential target for other people to scan down and hunt. Do not do that. Keep local completely off bounds when you are in wormholes. This is why a lot of people say, you know, you should have local as a separate window somewhere else. For me, no, I put local behind corp. That way I never accidentally click it or touch it, and I never have that possibility of opening myself up to being caught in a wormhole. Now at this point, it's pretty much like any system. If we have a look in the scanner overview here, we can see there are some combat sites here, some perimeter hangars, the ruins of Enclave, and all kinds of stuff like this in here, that if you have the right type of ship, you could come in and clear those out. Some of those are pretty good ISK. C2 and C3 sites are actually pretty good ISK. Ultimately, again, that's another topic for another video. I do have a Tengu that I run C2s and C3s in. We'll talk about that in future. There are also a load of different cosmic signatures around, so let's pick one of these and start to scan it down, just to talk about the kind of stuff that you can find inside a wormhole. I'm not going to focus on this too much though, because I just basically want this to be about wormhole survival, but it is worth pointing out that even your basic sites here can be very dangerous. Some of the things that will show up as relic and data sites, for example, do actually have enemies in them, and there's nothing worse than warping to what you think is a nice safe relic or data site, only for a whole bunch of enemies to be there waiting and you're not paying full attention. They lock you and you are dead before you can get any further. Also, I just think it's nice to showcase some of the stuff that we can find inside here. If you're just looking for basic survival tips, though, that's basically it there. I am ultimately looking for another wormhole, though, because I want to show you the whole concept of making a breadcrumb trail. I'm sure a lot of you are smart enough to figure out how that works on your own, but there we go, perfect example. Right, with that done, I'm now going to warp towards this wormhole, and we're going to do that actually safely this time at a distance of 10 kilometers away. I've still got my cloak on. Now, for all I know, some of these could be some really lucrative gas sites, some really lucrative relic or data sites. I'm going to scan them down after I've finished recording, because wormholing is my favourite thing in EVE Online. I have an alt that specialises in going gas huffing, what's called Jedi gas huffing, where I get in there and I huff a load of gas. I have this character that specialises in going mainly into relic and data sites, but can run those combat sites as well. It'd be nice for me to record 2 videos in a row. Anyway, let's have a look at this show info then. What do we see this time? An unstable wormhole deep in space can lead to anywhere. This leads into high security space, and looking at the colour, we can infer that that is going to be Amar space. It's a yellowy colour, so it's going to be somewhere in the Amar regions of HiSec, probably Amar itself or somewhere near to that. It's not yet begun its natural cycle of decay and should last at least another day, so we've got at least 24 hours left on this one. It's not yet had its stability significantly disrupted by ships passing through it, so again, it's safe to transit, and larger ships can pass through, so we can have everything up to battleships and orcas going through this one. Cool. Let's open up and see if we can scan down another wormhole. There should be some more nearby. I'm going to look for something that's a little bit further away. Let's move to those 2 down there and see what we can find. So I'm going to scan in on one of these, move the probes central to it, get them all nice and centered to that sphere, and we're going to start off at 8 astronomical units, analyze and narrow that in a little bit. Fingers crossed it's a wormhole, but hey, anything that I can find at this point could be interesting to showcase to you, so I'd consider that a win on any front, right? It's something that I can talk about in any direction. And this is going to be one of those awkward ones that moves around a whole bunch. There we are. Scan deviation is what that's referred to. How much a signature can move around. You can rig a ship specifically for that, or fit a ship specifically for that. I go for strength because I want to be able to get it down quickly. But obviously deviation is something else you can go for, and I will do a video again on fitting explorers up for different purposes at some point in the future. Oh, there we are. So we have a ruined Serpentis monument site there, and just behind it we have the start of me scanning down some kind of data site. Awesome, so let's get both of those while we're here. Now, if you ever see a line like that where it's basically saying, oh, it's on the end of one of these 2 points, it's not a hard and fast rule, but it does tend to be on the one that was furthest away from your scanners at the time that you pinged it. So there, my scanner was closest to this circle, therefore I'm going to go for this circle, and we're going to keep doing that. And the other thing to mention is, while you are scanning in these situations, I've not been doing it because I'm pretty comfortable being cloaked up, but you should absolutely be descanning. Absolutely be spamming that scan button on descanner basically at any second that you're not doing anything else. Here we have a central Sancha sparking transmitter. That's really quite nice as well. That's a nice relic site and a nice data site. Those are, I think, safe ones. So I'm going to save both of those locations to my shared bookmark folder so that I can come back here later. Obviously, I'm going to be doing it on this alt anyway, but again, this should really be set to 2 hours, not, to 2 days, not to the full infinite, but there we go. Let's have a look and find another site, because I do really genuinely want to create another little wormhole bookmark to show you proper breadcrumbing practice, and maybe just to get to read another wormhole intro and see if we've got another interesting one. It's nice to see we got a transit wormhole there as well, one that leads back out into high-sec space. That's pretty cool. I mean, heck, if you really wanted to go exploring some stuff in the Amar area, because it's an area you haven't really explored before, that's a great way to do it. Just transit out there and then come back through this wormhole later. Use it as a little shortcut to get yourself around. Ultimately, that can be really useful for the Air Career program as well, which does ask you to go exploring and just visiting systems in different regions as well. Okay, let's narrow this one right down. Wondering if I've made that a little bit too narrow there. Again, my scan strength and my deviation on this ship should be sufficient to get that. Hopefully in this one ping, but we'll see. And it's another relic site. Let's. I say that like I'm disappointed. I'm actually pretty excited about that. It's a lot of juicy finds here in this hole. But we're going to narrow that one down. And again, I'm going to bookmark it so that I don't have to worry about scanning this again later or anything. It's just there and I can warp to it from my bookmarks folder. Cool. Save location. Add that one in there as well. And again, that should really be on the today, not the never. But again, I'm fastidious about my bookmarks, so I give myself a pass on that. Got two more here and one more just to the side of me. That one to the side of me, I would anticipate is actually the wormhole that I came in from, but we'll see, So let's center up, move the probes into position, horizontally and vertically, widen out that probe scan, and let's see if we're lucky enough to locate another wormhole. Please, come on game, this would be awesome. But this is actually genuinely, it's worth talking about, because this is one of the things I really like about wormholes. It is pot luck. Everything about this is pot luck. And there we go, that's a gas site. That is definitely something I want to scan down for my alt, because gas sites can be big money. I've got a video coming very soon that will be following this one in the next couple of days that is about how I make upwards of 100 million ISK an hour, sometimes as much as 200 million ISK an hour if I've scanned down multiple sites before I go in, just gas huffing, and I do that completely safely with a prospect. And yeah, this is going to be one of those awkward little gits that just keeps moving around. Nice and central, drop that down to 2 AU, that should now be plenty to get that gas site there nice and locked into position, and we've got one other right here next to it that we can scan down as well. There we are, that's a nice gas site, so let's add that, save location, gas site added to the list, and now we're going to try and figure out, oh, is that another gas site? Yeah, we've got another gas site right over there as well, cool. Let's ignore that for the time being, though, because I want to try and find this other wormhole. There should be another wormhole in here. It's not guaranteed, but it just feels weird to be in a wormhole that doesn't have any other actual connections to it, you know, into more unknown space. Having it go straight into a Mars space from Galente space is kind of cool, and it has its own uses, but I do really want to find one that goes further into a chain of wormholes, so we can start talking about chaining and showcasing that. Perfect. Another wormhole. Zoom in on this one. Come on. Let's get that down. It's already in orange, so 2 AU should be sufficient to scan it. Probably should have gone for the 1.0 AU there, just to be certain. We'll see. We'll see. What do we get? Yep, there we go. Oh, that's the wormhole that I bookmarked on the way in. Okay, that's awesome. We've got one more out here. What's that? That's a wormhole there. Perfect. How did I ignore that for so long? And again, let's just ping the D-scan to be sure I'm not about to get munched. There we go. New wormhole. Scan in. Zoom out a little bit. Move those probes into position. It's already fairly tight, so going in at the 2 AU should be okay here. I might have actually even wanted to make that smaller and just go straight from red to green in one ping. That's always fun. If Eve ever added achievements, that's totally what we'd go for. There we are. Cool. So we have another wormhole here. So again, warp to within 10 kilometers of this one. And let's have a look. It is definitely another wormhole because obviously I'm parked at this one. There's usually, not always, but usually between 3 and 5 wormholes inside a wormhole. Sometimes you go into a wormhole, you get a load of signatures to look at, and it's just, oh look, it's another wormhole, and another wormhole, and another wormhole, like where are all the sites? This time I got the other way around. So let's have a look at this one. So yes, perfect, leads into unknown parts of space. This is another Anoikis J-space system on the other side of this one. It's beginning to decay and probably won't last another day, so it's 14 to 24 hours. The wormhole has not yet had its stability significantly disrupted, so it's above 50% of its stability still, and up to medium-sized ships can pass through this wormhole. So you might get a Drake through there. That's, or maybe a very small nester at best, but kind of battle cruiser or smaller is what you're looking at for this one. So now, again, absolutely save that location. Now, this time, I'm going to call this entrance, if I can type, entrance to 2. Because I'm in wormhole 1, this is now wormhole 2, right? And then we're going to approach, we're going to drop our cloak, and we're going to hit the micro warp drive. We're going to hit the micro warp drive, second time was the cloak interference, and pop our head into this wormhole and see what we get here. I'm not going to sit here and do the full scanning down of this time. It's just to show the breadcrumbs and how this works. So again, we're in a new wormhole, right? It's not a black hole or a Wolf Rayet or anything, so we don't have the cool little symbol here. We can identify it based on this. But for the time being, first things first, remember, bookmark your exit. This is now going to be exit to 1. You can see I use that naming convention a lot. That now means if I'm in this hole, which is wormhole 2 in my head, I can map that backwards, and this is going to lead back to wormhole 1, so I can follow the breadcrumb trail home, like Hansel and Gretel. Unlike Hansel and Gretel, though, I'm hoping I don't nearly get cooked by some crazy old witch who lives in the forest in a candy house. Lots of candy houses around, but I'm hoping the witch isn't going to catch me. So again, let's launch our probes, and then Covert Ops cloaking device. Should be nice and far away. Let's have a look at something here. I'm just going to get one decent sight. Watch as this is now one that has a million different wormholes in it. Go to the one on the edge first, just because it's easy to focus in on. There we are. Zoom in sideways as well. Make that 8 astronomical units to cover the whole thing. And we'll see what kind of sight we get here. Pinging this. Ooh, we've got structures in here. It's nice when you see structures in here. That's some interesting stuff going on. But okay, let's now zoom in on that particular point again. First of all, horizontally, or x-axis, I guess. And then y-axis. That's x and z and now y-axis, I guess. Zoom that in. 2's probably too far. Screw it. Risk it for a biscuit, right? Let's go see if we can get this straight from red to green and see what sight this could be. Scanning through. What do we get? Oh, it's another wormhole. Cool. So let's just pretend this is whatever you want to be interested in. Could be a gas site, could be a data site. And you're sitting there and you go off and you do your thing, right? So we're going to warp in on this point, and obviously I'm going to keep my distance on this. But now you decide that you've finished gas huffing, you've finished relic or data hunting or whatever, you've done your combat sites, or worse, you've spotted someone trying to scan you down on D-scan and you are a little bit nervous. How do you get home? Simple. Locations in the same system, you've already got your breadcrumb trail, right? So we're just going to launch right the way back to exit to 1. Shouldn't have closed that down, although this does show where to find it if you don't know. Go into personal and locations. There's the thing, and I've got mine in compact mode because I love Proton UI and its compact mode. I know that's controversial. Not all EVE Online players like Proton UI, Photon UI. Photon UI, pretend I said Photon the first time as well. It is Photon UI. I honestly really like it. But now we come straight back to the exit to 1. We can go through this wormhole and boom, we are now at the entrance to 2 bookmark we had before. If I want to go home, I can warp straight across to the exit back into real space. Everything is there in a nice, easy breadcrumb trail. And yes, there are external tools you can use for this. There are various websites you can use for it as well, but no website is perfect, right? There is the possibility of those going down, so it is best to get into the habit of doing it in-game manually first of all, then you can start using the websites, because ultimately I would rather, have my backside covered when I'm in a wormhole. This is not the kind of thing I want to be going out there and, just kind of risking things with. So that's it. That's Wormhole Survival. There is your Wormhole Survival 101. Hopefully this will give you the incentive just to stick your nose into a wormhole. Take a Corvette if you're that worried. Corvette with a cheap probe scanner on it, probe launcher, and just a standard set of basic scan probes just to get in, have a look around, scan some stuff down, fly around, get yourself a little bit more comfortable with the area around you. Just get a feel for what's going on, what it's like, what kind of stuff you can find. Make sure you're using your D-scan to keep an eye on things around you, but have fun. Explore. These are not as terrifying as some people make them out to be. It's manageable. It's basically all of the skills you've probably learned from low-sec and null-sec, but just with some of the safety nets taken away. That's all wormholes are, and as Penn and Teller once famously said, whether you're doing a high wire rope at 4 foot off the ground or a high wire trick at 40 foot off the ground, it is still the same trick. And if you can do it at 4 foot, you can do it at 40. There's no difference between those two, and hopefully this will give you the incentive to get out there, give it a try, and see what you can find. Good luck wormholing, folks. If you found this useful or you just want to watch more videos like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit like on the video if you haven't already. And hey, if you want to support more content like this, I have a Patreon page that you can pledge to support, I have a PayPal tip jar that you can pledge to support, and I even have a Redbubble merchandise store, including cool merchandise based on the ship that I'm flying, the Lucid Echo, which is my sort of exploratory flagship, I suppose you could call it. Anyway, folks, let me know how you get on with this in the comment section down below. If you do go into a wormhole, come back and tell me how you get on. Tell me what you found. Tell me what kind of cool, crazy stuff you found out there. I really want to hear and know how you guys are getting on with this. Anyway, folks, thank you for watching this one right the way through to the end. Happy sailing, and see you in New Eden!